Yo, what's up, people? It's your boy, ThaLiveKing, coming at you with a quick episode of Space the Floor. For those that don't know, Space the Floor is my new segment that I'm going to do on my channel where I'm pretty much talking about NBA basketball in general. I do a lot of it on Twitter, and you know, I figure I'd just bring it to my YouTube channel. But anyways, we're going to talk about this trade deadline today, and we're going to be talking about who is the odd team out in the East, I should say. So basically, the Cavs traded like half their roster. Pretty much, they got rid of Isaiah Thomas, they got rid of Channing Frye, they got rid of Iman Shumpert, Jay Crowder, Derrick Rose, and they traded away Dwayne Wade back to the Heat. So in addition, they got Larry Nance Jr., they got Jordan Clarkson, they got Jordan Hill. They got Jordan Hill. They got George Hill, and then they got Rodney Hood. I think Rodney Hood is a sleeper of a pick. You know, he can shoot. He can probably play some defense. I think he's just an upgrade. To me, I think he's an upgrade over Jay Crowder. I never really liked Jay Crowder's game anyway. His shooting was inconsistent, and I know Rodney Hood could shoot. So we'll see how it fares in the Eastern Conference. So the Cavs they're in a good position to overhaul their roster anyway. So it's not like they were, 20 games under 500 and felt that they need to overhaul their roster or anything like that. It just felt like they had to get rid of certain players, and they knew they had to get better somehow. So I don't know how much better they're gonna get, because it's kind of a weird thing that they did, because you really don't trade your whole team like that at the trade deadline. You usually wait till the offseason to do these things, but who knows why they did it. I'm sure there will be reports coming out on why they did what they did, so we just have to wait and see. I still think they're gonna finish top 3 in the East regardless, mainly because they got LeBron James on their team, and I really can't see them bottoming out and not making the playoffs, or even getting past getting anything lower than the 4th seed anyway. So there have to be a team in the East that elevates their game to a certain point that they just become so hot that they just have all the momentum going into the playoffs. And the only team I really see doing that is Detroit, mainly because they got Blake Griffin. I think they won like 5 games in a row since he's been there, and he's making the game a lot easier for Andre Drummond. So I don't know, man. The Pistons are, like, I'm not a big fan of the Pistons, but like, you have to respect what they did. People thought that it was a bad deal for both teams or whatever, but I just never saw it that way, because I always knew Andre Drummond needed help. So now you got a guy who's pretty much an all-star, and he can close out games, and he can make, he's been in those positions where he can make decisions to win a game. So now you have that in Detroit. Now they have a chance to move up in the standings. So I'm looking at the standings right now, and I'm seeing in the East you got your top 3 teams. You have the Celtics, Raptors, and then you have the Cavs, and then now you have the Wizards, who's been playing good without John Wall. You have the Bucks. You got Indiana at 6. Miami's been dropping off, but they got Dwayne Wade, so you never know. That could probably spark the team to do better as well. So, and then you got the Sixers. So one of those teams is not going to make the playoffs. So you got Detroit, which is pretty much they're 1 game over 500 at 27 and 26, and they're tied with Philly. So if I were to pick a team that might miss the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, because I think that these 9 teams are the teams that are locked for the rest of the rest of the season, on who's going to between the fight between the 8th spot, between the 8th spot and I would even say 4th, because you don't know where Washington is gonna end up, because they're on a hot streak right now, but they can drop off too. So between Detroit, between Philly, Miami, Indiana, the Bucks, and the Wizards. I think that's going to be there's going to be a fluctuation between those teams. The team I think that will be most likely to bottom out would be Philadelphia. If not, like, I'm a Pacer fan, but we're one major injury away from like bottoming out too. Because if Oladipo somehow gets hurt, and you know, I think the chemistry is going to be there, but we don't win games without Oladipo. So if Oladipo stays healthy, I still think we'll be able to sustain our play. We're 5 games over 500, so I think we'll be able to sustain it. I think we'll make the playoffs. But you know, Philly's gonna have so much pressure on them within the coming weeks because Detroit's not backing down. Like, Detroit's playing real good right now. Like, so you know, that will probably put pressure on the young guys in Philly to, you know, to try to make the playoffs, because you know they have momentum too with the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, so that might fire them up too. But from an NBA standpoint, like I just think they're the team that's most likely going to bottom out. And then I think they were trying to get Marco Bellinelli from Atlanta, and they needed another shooter. I think that was a Colangelo thing because Colangelo had him in Toronto. So I think he was just trying to bring some more players that he knows very well to Philadelphia to help win, help them get into the playoffs. So I think that's all that was. But Detroit, they're gonna keep winning. I can't see them really, because really, who in the East is gonna slow down Drummond? Drummond just got a 20-20 game last night, so he's gonna be a monster on the boards against any team. He's gonna be a problem for any team. And then you got Blake Griffin, and then they're gonna get their guys back. I think Reggie Jackson should be back soon. And you know, I just think they have so much momentum, and Blake Griffin's got so much to prove. I think they'll end up moving up in the standings. I think they can I think Detroit could finish at least 5th. I think they can probably overtake the Bucks. I think the Bucks would somehow regress too, unless Giannis plays out of his mind or whatever. But I think the Bucks might finish 6th. I think Indiana will somehow finish 7th. I think there will be a slight drop off for Indiana, and I think the 8th seed will go to Miami, and I think Miami will end up playing Toronto in the first round, or not Toronto. Yeah, I think, well, the Raptors are gunning for the #1 spot. So if the Raptors play the Heat in the first round, I think that will be an interesting matchup. And then you have the Celtics, say they finish 2nd, they'll end up playing Indiana. And I think Indiana could give them they could compete with them, but I think at the end of the day, I don't think we'll have enough. So, and then you'll have the Cavs playing. What did I say? I think you'll have the Cavs playing the Bucks. I'm trying to remember if I said the Bucks were finishing 6th. I can't remember now. But I think that no, I said the Bucks would the Pistons will finish at least 5th, I think, and then the Bucks will finish 6th. So you'll probably have the Cavs finishing 3rd. And then you'll have, I think the Bucks will play the Cavs in the first round. I would love to see a Central Division team kind of knock off the Cavs. I know in my last video I said I wouldn't want the Raptors to do it, but that's just like a personal thing. But I'd rather a Central Division team play the Cavs in the playoffs, because you have that extra motivation because you're already a rival, and you know a lot of the teams in the Central, they just want to send LeBron home. They're tired of losing to LeBron, so. I think that's where I'm going with that. So, and what else should I talk about? I think the Raptors, they're a weird team because you know their starters are playing okay, but then their bench is playing like phenomenal. You probably have the best bench in the NBA. So what it's gonna come down to for me is, I feel that, you know, last year in the playoffs, Ibaka wasn't hitting nothing, right? Like, he was missing jump shots, but, you know, he was the veteran presence on the team. And, you know, Dwayne Casey kept him in the game, and he kept bricking and bricking and bricking. And now you have, you know, Siakam, and you have Porto, I can't really pronounce his name, but those two guys are playing, they're playing pretty good. They're getting in the lanes, they're getting in the paint, they're, you know, they're just doing their thing. Like like the scouting report on those guys is just, you have to keep a body on them. And we know a lot of these guys in the NBA nowadays, they don't like putting a body on nobody. So those guys will probably live in the paint, getting offensive rebounds. Raptors will probably get out a second chance points off of them. And I just think that Dwayne Casey's going to have to trust those guys over Ibaka come playoff time, because teams are going to sag off of Ibaka and force him to shoot. I was playing 2K yesterday, and like they update the data all the time in that game, and like when Ibaka got the ball, you see the computer just sagging right off of him, forcing me to shoot. I was shooting and I was missing, and that's exactly what the Cavs did last year. So you have to think, if the Raptors, there's a lot of hype in the Toronto saying that, you know, the Raptors can get to the finals this year because of the Celtics, and they feel they're better than the Celtics and the way the Cavs are right now. So they feel that there's the Raptors have their best path to the finals this year. But you have to look at the situation and think, so is Dwayne Casey going to trust the bench in the playoffs like how they're trusting them now, or is he going to just, you know, have the bench play the way they're playing now, and then go back to, you know, a strict 8-man rotation, 9-man rotation, and just play their big guys, the big guns, for 40 minutes a game. So that's one thing I'm worried about with the Raptors come playoff time, because you can't switch it up. You can't get to the playoffs and switch up your game plan like that regardless. You have to keep playing your game. This is what you've been doing since the beginning of the season, and that's what you have to go into the playoffs with. You can't just change those habits. So I feel that, you know, if the Raptors do that, you know, you never know, because to me the East is wide open. I think anybody can beat Boston. I think Boston will execute very well, and I think they're going to be tough to beat because they have a lot of guys who have that clutch gene. So they're going to be hard. They're going to be hard to put out 4 games in a row, or 4 games in a series. The Raptors, same with them. They have the guys there who's been, you know, they finally won a playoff series a few years ago. They made the second round. They made the conference finals. So these guys are hungry to advance. You have the Washington Wizards. I still don't know about that team. You got the Bucks, who's still trying to, you know, cement themselves as a contender in today's NBA. Because they finished, I think they were 42-40 last year. So hopefully they can sustain their play since they fired their coach, Jason Kidd. Hopefully they can sustain their play going into the playoffs. So I think the East is wide open. It'll be interesting to see where the matchups lie come playoff time. So you always have to keep an eye on, you know, the games behind. It's like a real tight race, so you don't know. So you gotta you can't just pay attention to the season series. You gotta pay attention to, you know, how these teams match up against each other, how they played against each other. And the Celtics and Raptors have 2 more games before the season ends, so it'll be interesting to see how they match up. The Raptors jumped on the Celtics last game and they just blew them out of the ACC. So we'll see how they bounce back from that. If you listen to Kyrie Irving in the post-game interview, he pretty much had the Raptors figured out on how they do their rotations and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how they adjust to the Raptors bench. Indiana, I'm just hoping they stay healthy. They get Glenn Robinson back after the All-Star break. He's healthy, he's playing in the D-League, and he's one guy that we really need, especially with his athleticism and his ability to, you know, run the floor and get dunks and alley-oops, and, you know, he's another guy to help Bogdanovic guard the other, you know, the other team's best player. So, and then you got Miami. They've been sagging off, but you never know. These are the type of teams that can go on runs after the All-Star break. You got like 20 games left, so these teams are going to be gearing up for a playoff run. So and Philadelphia, like I said, Philadelphia and Detroit, you know, Detroit's probably going to move up. So these teams are going to be hungry. You know, a lot of these teams in the East have something to prove this year, and it's kind of refreshing to see that because, you know, the East has been a laughing stock over the last couple of years. Oh, LeBron just walks his way to the finals or whatever, but I just don't think there's a clear-cut team that's going to make the finals this year in the East. You have to see where the matchups are, and you have to see how they play against those matchups. So I'm not making any predictions now, but I'm kind of waiting to see like how the last 5 games of the seasons go, and to see how these teams are in the standings, so you can start getting an idea on, you know, the seeding come playoff time. So I think that's all I'm gonna say about this. I think I'm gonna do these every Thursday. Yeah, every Thursday, you know, just to talk basketball, because, you know, I'm on Twitter all the time, you know, just speaking ball, talking ball, you know, interacting with, you know, people that speak basketball all the time. So I just figured I'd just bring it to my YouTube channel and just see where it goes. I don't really care about views. It's just me, you know, it's just something I feel like I want to do, just to, you know, get my opinions and my thoughts out there about what's going on in the basketball National Basketball Association. And if you have any questions or comments, just leave them down below. Who do you think is going to make the conference finals in the East this year? Just anything. Let's talk ball in the comment section. You guys know I always reply back. So I'm going to leave it at that. And see you guys next week, man. Peace.